Hi there! Hobart has been left without mass transit ever since the 1970s, when the suburban railway service ended. This ran through the northern suburbs from Brighton to Hobart. Meanwhile, the eastern shore has developed fast, ever since the bridges over the river were built. However, in this video we'll go back to the early 1900s, when a railway ran from the Derwent River at Bellerive to the then regional town of Sorell. This line was one of very few lines in Tasmania never connected to the main network, and as such has a fascinating story to be told. Hi, I'm Jess. I run the YouTube channel Tasmanian, and in this video we're exploring Hobart's suburban railway that never was. Hobart's booming east shore has been a difficult region to access for many years. The Tasman Bridge provides the sole link to the CBD, and well, we know how that goes. But further beyond the wealthy hills overlooking the Derwent is the fast-growing town of Sorell, and its surrounds of Midway Point, Dodgers Ferry, and Cambridge. But many years ago, in the 1880s, these were rural areas with a large degree of separation from Hobart. There was no bridge south of Bridgewater, so the only way to cross the river was by ferry. This was further complicated for residents of small towns of Cambridge and Sorell, and those further afield who couldn't get to a ferry easily. Many heated debates in the colonial parliament took place, with the usual parochial arguments, as well as raising the slightly important point that, well, very few people lived in the region, and that a railway would be a major waste of money. Nonetheless, common sense was defeated once again, and survey engineer T.M. Atkinson was commissioned to survey a route. He identified a corridor from Bellerive to Sorell, via Cambridge and Shark Point, of only 14 miles, alongside a branch to Richmond. Further south, the farming communities on the Clarence Plains at Rokeby demanded the railway be routed via their farms, but luckily there were enough shreds of common sense remaining to stop this crazy proposal, which had a massive deviation, bringing the line to over 20 miles long. Finally, the Railway Construction Act 1885 was passed, setting aside £58,700 for construction, with an 1889 amendment that had an additional £37,800 added later. Finally, in December 1889, tenders were issued for the construction of the railway. Robert Patterson, who had recently completed the Plenty to Glenora section of the Derwent Valley line, won the contract and begun works. A ceremony to turn the first sod was held in Sorell on the 20th of April 1890, and construction began in haste. Works progressed slower than expected because of tunnel construction, harder rocks than expected, and transportation of resources across the river. Former Tasmanian Mainline Railway locomotive number 11 was brought to Bellerive in April 1891 to assist with construction before work was completed in early 1892. The line opened to traffic on the 2nd of May 1892 with an official function at the Pembroke Hotel in Sorell on the 5th of May. Now, at this important moment in the history of the railway, we'll pause to discuss the route. The Bellerive railway station was highly unusual, being located at the end of a pier in Kangaroo Bay, with connecting ferries to Hobart. There was a stockyard where the line reached the mainland before the railway swung northeast. The first stopping place was The Turning, located close to the modern Clarence Tastafe campus. The line continued through modern Mornington before entering the hills. A very rare occurrence for Tasmania, a tunnel was located underneath a ridge of Mount Rumney, before the line re-emerged at its highest point of 131 metres above sea level, before descending slightly to one of the main stops along the line, Red Gate. This seemingly minor stop was one of the busiest locations on the service, as hikers and picnickers would alight and spend the day on Mount Rumney, which was at the time a large forested peak in the Mean Ranges, not the low-density suburban area it is now. The line descended significantly to stop at Horseshoe Crossing near the Horseshoe Inn before reaching Cambridge Station, the largest intermediate stop. This served the town of Cambridge with a goods yard and crossing loop. Continuing along, we leave the corridor of the modern Tasman Highway and head northeast, with two minor stops at Lanes and Johnson's crossings, before heading onto a causeway to cross Pitt Water, and immediately reaching a stop at Shark Point, where many fishers and picnickers would alight. The line continued to a siding and loop at Flexmoor, then continuing to a second siding at Frogmore, which was renamed Penner in 1914. From here, the line continued fairly straight to Coilers Crossing, crossing the main East Coast Road, now the Tasman Highway, before finally reaching Sorell Station, located at the modern Sorell Park and Ride site, where the old station building remains. Alright, now it's time to cover the operational history of the railway. The isolation of the railway saw it used as a dumping ground for old, inefficient and outdated rolling stock, particularly the old Tasmanian Mainline Railway Company's locomotives. 2 D-plus class locomotives were the sole power for the first decade of operation, before the sole A+1 locomotive was brought here in 1906. Its run-down state and limited strength made sure it was rarely used. At times, a D-class locomotive would be shipped to the line for busier periods, primarily race day specials. Initially, there were 2 daily round trips on the line, one in the mid-morning and one in the late evening. There was a unique operation in the Cambridge area where single wagons would be shunted to local landowners' homes for unloading. The railway never was very profitable, however in the year of 1902 it managed to turn a small profit. In the 1920s, traffic declined further from already low base levels, and service was reduced to a single daily train in 1925. This obviously did not save the railway. Growing maintenance issues on the Pittwater Causeway saw the last service run on the 30th of June 1926, almost exactly 100 years ago as of the recording of this video. The line was dismantled 3 years later, in 1929. Well, in the 100 years since the line closed, a lot has changed in the area. Suburban development has covered the first section of line. From Cambridge to Sorell, the alignment remains fairly clearly intact. The only direct remnants I'm aware of are the tunnel near Redgate and the station building at Sorell, but if I'm not mistaken, this outcrop in Kangaroo Bay may be the remains of the railway pier or yard. If you want to travel the length of the line today, you can catch bus routes 731, 732, X32, X33, 734, 736, and 737, which run from Hobart to Sorell and beyond, via Rosny Park Interchange, which is located very close to the old alignment, about 1 kilometre walking distance from the old Bellerive railway station, and the Sorell Interchange and bus terminus is located very close to the old railway station site, indeed within the old rail yards. This sadly brings me to the end of this video. If you want to learn more about Lutruwita, Tasmania's rail or transport history, you can subscribe to this channel and come join my Discord server to stay up to date with everything going on in the transit sphere on our little island. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time on Tasmanian.